Democratic leaders have been demanding reforms to immigration enforcement warrants, arguing ICE officials should have to obtain judicial warrants before entering homes rather than relying on just administrative warrants. President Trump was also asked this yesterday, whether he was willing to negotiate with Democrats on this key issue. Watch.
Are you open to negotiating on warrants when it comes to ICE? This is an ask from Senator Schumer. Requiring search warrants for ICE and immigration officials.
I haven't even thought of it. I'm not thinking about search warrants. Yeah, Lindsey Graham is going to answer that.
No, makes no sense. If we have to get a search warrant to get 15 million people out, Schumer's telling me he doesn't want them out. It's the most ridiculous idea.
It's pretty similar to what House Speaker Mike Johnson said with me and other reporters just yesterday. Watch.
Imagine if we had to go through the process of getting a judicial warrant, an additional warrant to go and apprehend people who we know are here illegally. How much time would that take? We don't have enough judges. We don't have enough time. It would take decades probably to do that. The people who are advocating for that don't want any immigration enforcement. They do not want anybody to be sent out of the country here illegally, and that is blatantly what their cause is.
Here on set with me, Democratic Congressman Chris Pappas of New Hampshire. Congressman, I think when I heard the speaker say that yesterday in his press conference, it said to me, okay, he's now starting to outline the things that Republicans may, or in this case may not, negotiate on. And for Democrats who have laid out a list of changes that they would like to see, everything from warrant reform to removing face masks to applying a standard of conduct across ICE, do you actually think that there is an appetite for bipartisanship here? You're one of those who often reaches across the aisle, but you and I were even just talking about this moment of accountability right now.
Well, look, Allie, the American people want this. And I know, coming from New Hampshire, a very purple state, I see a lot of Republicans that are telling me that this is an overreach, that what they see happening in Minneapolis and across the country is not consistent with our Constitution and our values. So Democrats aren't asking for too much here. The Constitution isn't an inconvenience. We've got to make sure that we're following the law and the Constitution and that we're insisting on some basic accountability measures that are lacking right now. So as DHS and ICE run roughshod over the Constitution and the law, Democrats are going to stand up for, making sure that our communities actually are safe. We support efforts to make sure that we're going after criminals, going after the worst of the worst. But terrorizing communities, just dividing Americans in a very cynical political way is not how DHS should be operating right now. So I think that asking for things like judicial warrants, making sure that we're putting up some guardrails in terms of the kinds of training and best practices from local law enforcement that we see in our states that need to be applied to DHS, that's not asking for too much.
If warrant reform is off the table, could you get to yes on whatever that ultimate package is?
Well, we will see what gets put together here. And I always think we're better off not litigating this in the media, but figuring out how people can get in a room and actually hash something out. We were much better off for government funding when people were able to do that. We got past the shutdown. We got 11 of 12 bills agreed to on a very bipartisan basis. So I hold out hope that people will be listening to their constituents. And this is not just Democratic activists that are reacting against what they're seeing. This is the broad swath of Americans that don't trust ICE, that believe they're going too far, they're overreaching. We need to be able to rein them in and focus them on the best practices of law enforcement that will truly keep this country safe.
And I want to stay focused on the job that you have now, because you are also running for a Senate seat, and I want to get there. But just quickly, one of the things that sort of touched off this weekend was the way that the top Democrat, Hakeem Jeffries, said, OK, if you're not going to talk to House Democrats, then we're not going to be able to provide you votes to actually get this package over the finish line. Do you get the sense, because Schumer negotiated directly with Trump, do you get the sense that Senate Democrats and House Democrats are on the same page at this point? I know that Schumer and Jeffries met yesterday to sort of hammer things out. But what came from that? Do you have an understanding of where they're at?
Well, I think generally Democrats are pretty united here in terms of what we want out of this process. I think Democrats want reforms. They want to make sure that there are guardrails, basic, things like, warrant reform and making sure that we have de-escalation training. And that officers are identified. I think Democrats are broadly in agreement in terms of what the asks are here. So we'll see how this is negotiated in the coming days. I mean, we have 9 days to go. I think that there's no way that this is done by the end of that time frame. We're going to need some more time. It probably won't be, given the pace of business in this town. So that's incredibly frustrating. And we can't be waiting for DHS to be following the law and the Constitution. This administration, again, is overreaching. Everyone sees it in this country, and we need policies that are actually going to focus on how we can truly keep America safe.
And your understanding, at least as of right now, is that when you say people should be getting in a room in bipartisan fashion, are those conversations happening yet?
Well, they are.
Okay.
People are talking, and let's see how that continues in the next few days.
Yeah, we're definitely going to keep an eye on that. But then I also want to pivot to the campaign that you are in the midst of running. The president just weighed in on the Republican side of the ledger, of course, endorsing one of your likely opponents, John Sununu. How does that change the contours of a race? Because I've covered Trump a long time. New Hampshire was really the place that launched him in 2016 during that primary. And yet I remember being there in 2020, or rather in 2024, and hearing Trump voters say, well, I'm looking at DeSantis or I'm looking at Haley because I just don't feel that the president has done what he said he's going to do. So does a Trump endorsement carry the weight that it once did?
Well, look, Donald Trump has lost New Hampshire 3 times. They've been close calls, and he's got a lot of support still on the ground in New Hampshire. But this was always going to be a very close Senate race. We're a purple state. Republicans control everything at the state level. They have a 5-point registration advantage on Democrats. So we were always planning for a real tough margin of error campaign, and that's exactly what we've got right now. But I think the fact that John Sununu is throwing in his lot with Donald Trump is pretty clear about what you have to do in the Republican Party to get ahead these days. And I think John Sununu, just as when he was in the Senate the last time, it was down the line for George W. Bush, supported all the policies that New Hampshire was reacting against, and was defeated in 2008. And so as he embraces things like increased tariffs that are raising costs for New Hampshire families, as he supports cuts to Medicaid, as he is silent on things like pardons for January 6th insurrectionists that beat up cops at the Capitol, it's clear that he's going to stand with Donald Trump. And I think the voters of New Hampshire are going to want something different. We are a very independent state. People want checks and balances. They want accountable government. And they want someone who's going to focus on their day-to-day concerns, the high cost of living, housing, health care, child care, education. Those are the kinds of things we're going to be talking about in our campaign.
And I'm pretty sure that Sununu himself hasn't yet responded, warmly or not, to the Trump endorsement, though he has been someone who in the past has been critical of the president. We will see ultimately what ends up happening in this race. You and I are going to be talking a lot. I'm sure I'm going to come visit you in New Hampshire because you are one of the marquee Senate races. And of course, we'll be watching you in the House as well. Democratic Congressman Chris Pappas of New Hampshire, thank you. But